Iran's supreme leader calls for those behind the killing of the country's top nuclear scientist to be punished. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh died in an ambush on his car Friday. Tehran blames Israel for the attack. Images which shame France. President Macron reacts to the video of police officers beating a black music producer at his studio in Paris. The 4 officers have been suspended and are being held for questioning. And after a second month-long lockdown, France eases coronavirus restrictions slightly. Non-essential shops are allowed to open this weekend in a bid to breathe life into the retail sector in the run-up to Christmas. Those are the headlines this hour. Thanks for joining us. You're watching France 24. Iran's supreme leader has vowed retaliation for the killing of the country's top nuclear scientist. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was killed Friday in an ambush on his car by gunmen in the town of Absard, east of the capital Tehran. Iran blames Israel for the attack and says the killing will not slow down the country's nuclear program. Lauren Berstecher has this report.
Pointing the finger at Israel and the U.S. for the killing of one of its top nuclear scientists. Iran said it was ready to defend itself against any acts of foreign aggression in a scathing letter to the United Nations.
Warning against any adventuristic measures by the United States and Israel against my country, particularly during the remaining period of the current administration of the United States in office, the Islamic Republic of Iran reserves its right to take all necessary measures to defend its people.
Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the man widely considered to be the architect of Iran's nuclear program, was killed in an ambush east of Tehran on Friday. Nobody claimed responsibility for the attack, but Iranian officials, including Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, were quick to blame regional rival Israel, which it has accused of assassinating several prominent scientists over the past decade. In 2018, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even singled out Fakhrizadeh in a presentation on Iran's nuclear ambitions.
This is how Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Project Ahmad, put it. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh.
The killing is likely to heighten regional tensions and further strain Tehran's relationship with the U.S. Since pulling out of a landmark nuclear deal in 2018, Donald Trump has repeatedly sought to isolate Iran while working to normalize ties between Israel and its other regional foes. Last week, Benjamin Netanyahu met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh in the first reported meeting in history between the two countries' leaders.
Majid Golpour is an Iran specialist, and he told us that there are now concerns that killing could destabilize the region.
On the regional level, we are already in very high level of the escalation of tension, especially with the proxy war of Republic Islamic. All the neighborhood now, they are creating a kind of coalition with Israel. And also because the question of sanction, Republic Islamic have any more the resources for their own ambition, military ambition. So we really don't know how the evolution of the situation can go in the side of the Supreme Guide in Iran. But one thing is very clear, the answer for the assassination of Mr. Soleimani is on the waiting list. And we don't know yet how much we must wait for this new assassination answer.
4 French police officers are being held for questioning over the beating of a black music producer at his Paris studio this week. The brutal attack was caught on camera and proved that the officers, who've since been suspended, lied about what happened. President Macron says the incident is a source of shame for France. His government is now under mounting pressure to scrap a bill which would criminalise the filming of police. Lauren Berstecher has the story.
Calling for solutions to restore trusts between the French population and police. Emmanuel Macron condemned the violent beating and arrest of a black music producer on Friday after several videos of the incident went viral, causing widespread outrage across France.
The video footage we have all seen of the attack against Michel Zecler is unacceptable. It shames us. France must never let hatred and racism prosper.
The videos, which emerged on Thursday, showed 3 police officers violently beating a black man for 15 minutes inside his music studio. In another video published Friday, police can be seen repeatedly hitting the victim, identified as Michel Zecler, while he was being apprehended outside. The officers, who did not realize the incident was being filmed, initially said Zecler, who was not wearing a mask, had attacked them and tried to grab their weapons, only to later retract their statements. Zecler was held for 48 hours and released without charges. 4 of the officers involved in the incident have been suspended and are currently being detained pending the results of the investigation.
J'ai demandé la suspension de ces policiers et dès que les faits seront établis par la justice, puisqu'elle est saisie, je demanderai la révocation de ces policiers.
The videos have fueled fresh controversy over a proposed security law spearheaded by the Interior Minister, which would make it illegal to publish images of police officers' faces with the intent of doing them harm.
Well, journalists and rights groups are marching today for a second time, calling on the government to scrap Article 24, the part of the bill which would punish people who publish identifiable images of police officers. Rallies are due to take place in Paris and in other cities across France. The government has said it is reviewing the law. Now, in Europe, countries are tentatively lifting some restrictions in the hope of saving the economy in the run-up to Christmas. Well, this weekend in France, non-essential shops will be allowed to open for the first time in a month, but strict coronavirus restrictions remain in place. Yuka Roya has this report.
After 4 weeks shuttered, this shopping centre can once again welcome clients, but not like before. Tight social distancing measures are now in place to meet the government's requirement.
On essaie de se préparer au mieux avec un petit balisage là, avec une entrée, une sortie, avec des gels hydroalcooliques à disposition, des gants que j'ai mis à disposition aussi pour les clients.
On se doit de le faire, d'être responsable à ce niveau-là pour éviter ce qu'on craint tous, c'est-à-dire une troisième vague après les fêtes.
For many French retailers, the pre-Christmas shopping season accounts for about a fifth of their annual sales. With half of that period lost due to the lockdown, shop owners are eager to catch up.
On est très contents. On attend les clients avec impatience, puis espérons qu'on fasse un très beau mois de décembre. Voilà.
Hairdressers and beauty salons are also allowed to reopen, though without offering drinks or magazines to customers. They also must keep 8 square meters of space around each client. This hairdresser needs to extend opening hours to make a profit.
On va travailler de 8h à 21h non-stop. On va manger vraiment en 5 minutes sur le pouce. Et même s'il faut, on ouvrira les dimanches pour compenser cette perte de chiffre d'affaires.
People are also allowed to go outdoors in an area that extends to 20 kilometers, up from the previous 1 kilometer limit, and for 3 hours instead of 1. But only if COVID cases are kept under control. The second phase of lockdown is set to end on the 15th of December, but it will still not be back to business as usual. It will be replaced by a curfew from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Well, the number of coronavirus cases in the United States has topped 13 million. Officials are responding with further restrictions during the period between America's 2 biggest holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. From Monday, Los Angeles will ban all gatherings of individuals from more than one household. Coronavirus infections there have topped 4,500 cases for 5 straight days. The new measure will affect some 20 million people. Now, to mounting fears for civilians in Ethiopia after the army pledged to take control of the city of Mekelle within days. The city is the capital of the northern Tigray province and it's home to 500,000 people. Government forces are fighting rebels in the region which borders Eritrea and Sudan. Thousands of people are believed to have been killed and the fighting has sparked a major refugee crisis. Marius Sophos has the latest.
More than 43,000 refugees are estimated to have crossed into Sudan from Ethiopia since fighting broke out in Tigray on November the 4th. Local communities and humanitarian workers are struggling to provide food, shelter and healthcare while maintaining social distancing in the Sudanese refugee camps to tackle COVID-19 is practically impossible. Nearly half of the refugees are children.
I was with my grandmother when I started hearing gunshots. I had to flee on my own because my grandmother was too old to run. I had to spend a night in the wild. It was scary. I didn't have spare clothes or money. I eventually managed to cross the border, and then I asked someone to call my father.
As well as the many Ethiopians who are fleeing the conflict, the UN Refugee Agency says that 96,000 Eritrean refugees are living in 4 camps in Tigray, with some reported to have been in the vicinity of recent clashes. With humanitarian access to the region still being hindered, the UN is negotiating with all parties involved in the conflict to be allowed full access. As of yet, there is no sign of a breakthrough.
Without humanitarian access, it's very hard to say what is actually going on the ground, but there were worrying reports that fighting was getting closer to these refugee camps.
Based on calculations carried out since the last distribution of aid a few weeks ago, food supplies in the Tigray region could run out as early as this coming Monday.
Milan's regional government has launched an unprecedented reforestation programme to combat pollution. Set to take several years, the project has a special significance this year. Scientists say there is a link between pollution and the effects of the coronavirus. In the long term, the project will allow for more urban parks, city gardens, new woods and huge green open spaces. Our correspondent in Italy, Natalia Mendoza, has more.
A little bit of digging to prepare the terrain and finish today's job, to give a new life to this park in the northern outskirts of Milan. Today, a group of volunteers is planting several different tree species as part of a comprehensive project to bring nature back to the city.
È una delle strategie più importanti dello sviluppo di Milano e in generale delle aree metropolitane il fatto che dobbiamo incrementare il verde. Milano e la sua area metropolitana hanno attualmente circa 5 milioni e mezzo di alberi. L'obiettivo è di piantarne 3 milioni da qui al 2030.
An ambitious goal, so there is no time to waste. Between now and the end of March, 114,000 trees will be planted in and around the city. In order to increase the green spaces by 50% in 10 years, a research group was created and is led by Maria Chiara Pastore. Its mission: to locate areas for future planting.
Abbiamo determinato le aree intanto guardando parametri ambientali come l'isola di calore. Ci siamo resi conto che in città metropolitane le aree a nord erano quelle dove faceva più caldo d'estate e dove la temperatura rimaneva soprattutto anche la notte.
For the moment, 253 areas have been selected to create new parks, woodland areas and public gardens, or to regenerate wasteland, like this abandoned industrial zone, transformed into a gigantic green space. Here, 400 new trees will contribute to absorb the annual carbon emissions produced by the city.
I benefici, appunto, non soltanto quelli dell'aria che sappiamo, possiamo intuire del fatto che producono ossigeno, ma anche rispetto a proprio gli alberi ci regalano migliori qualità della vita in termini di pulizia dell'aria, col raffrescamento e anche l'impatto economico.
An economic impact related to the workforce employed in the maintenance of these areas. A green revolution in the capital of Lombardy that has already begun its ecological transformation.
Well, that's it from the newsroom this hour. Do stay with us. Much more still to come here on France 24.
Our reporters take us deep into the Amazon rainforest to the village of Kako, where the Hmong people arrived from Indochina 40 years ago.
Ici, on a trouvé notre terre, donc la Guyane française.
There was nothing when they arrived. Everything you see is down to their hard work. Roads, schools, homes, crops.
Ils nous font vivre la Guyane avec leurs plantations, avec leurs légumes, ce qui reste très important pour nous.
Once used as backup troops by the French in the Indochina War of the 1950s, the Hmong people have successfully integrated into Guyana's multi-ethnic society. Join us to discover these former refugees and their crucial role in their adopted homeland. In Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.